What's up everybody? Welcome back or to the channel. So today we're going to start a new project, and what we're going to be doing today is starting the install process for an in-ground basketball hoop. Now what we need to do is figure out our placement for the basketball hoop location. Then what we want to do is we want to just mark it. Before I start digging my hole, I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this good topsoil out of there that I already spread and set that off to the side. That way, once we start digging the dirt underneath, because I'm sure the dirt underneath is not going to be that good. So once we do that and backfill it, I want to be able to re-spread that topsoil back around this area. So we're going to have to clean that up here in a minute. So this is what we're going to be installing today. It's going to be the Goaliath 54-inch Prodigy. This is actually an adjustable basketball hoop. It has a square post that actually has a steel mounting bracket that you have to cement in the ground first. It does have a tempered glass backboard. So this is actually a pretty nice system right here. I ordered this off Dick's Sporting Goods website. I think this was about $6.99. Now you could pay somebody another $400 or $500 to install it, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do it ourselves. So what I did was I bought this 12-inch form tube. So what we're gonna do is after we dig our hole, we're gonna slide this tube down in the hole, and that's what we're gonna be filling with concrete. And then when we dig the bracket out of here, the bracket with the rebar is going to slide down in the concrete, and we're going to stabilize it, which is going to sit right here flush to the top. And then we're going to have to give that probably a good week to dry, to make sure it's really dry before we start actually mounting the basketball hoop to the bracket. What we're going to do is we're going to start digging through everything, because I want to make sure I set my parts aside. We're going to use our tape here to measure our center point. And I bought a whole bunch of concrete to use. I don't even know how many bags of concrete I'll use in the end. I'll obviously know that more later in the video. I believe I have about 11 80-pound bags of concrete, and then I had an extra 60-pound bag set aside. So we should have enough concrete to do the job. Okay, so we got most of the cardboard and everything taken out over here. So that's what you're looking for. We're looking for the anchor kit. So let me get that pulled out and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so we're back and we got the anchor kit opened up. Now in your hardware box, this is where your actual mounting plate's gonna be. So in this box over here, your main bolts, you have your rebar. It comes with some hardware. And then in your hardware separate box, you're gonna have your mounting plate. And then you're gonna actually mount your mounting plate like this. So you're gonna take your bars from the bottom, put a nut on it, slide it through the mount plate, put a nut on the top, and then do it in that exact pattern. Now, I will say this, for some of you guys and gals that might not be very handy, just read the directions. It's very simple. I mean, keep in mind, you're gonna end up paying somebody $400 to $500 or even $600 to install this for you. It's really not that bad. You buy your concrete, it's about $5 a bag, and then do the work yourself. So it's a little bit of extra hard work, but it's gonna save you $500. So again, all the instructions are laid out, what you gotta do. I'm not worried about mounting the actual basketball hoop together yet. I really just wanna focus on the base plate and getting the concrete in the ground, because we're gonna let that sit for about, it says 72 hours minimum, but I'm gonna give it a good 5 days or so before I start mounting anything on it. Then, once the concrete is in the hole and we're gonna let it dry, then I'll show you how to actually put it all together. And once it's all together and it's all dry, then we'll get it all mounted and show you the final product. But for now, I just wanna focus on finding my center point of the driveway and start digging the hole, which is probably the hardest part as far as labor goes. Okay, so we're back and we got the plate put together. So this is basically what it's gonna look like. You're just gonna take your bottom mounting bolt, put a nut on it right here. Just thread the nut down to the bottom to where it won't go any further. Then once you do that on all 4 bolts, you're gonna slide the bolts up from the bottom and just put a nut on the top. You're gonna wanna face your bottom pieces in a specific pattern like it says, okay, right here. All right, so that's basically all you're gonna do is you're gonna put it in a specific pattern. Once you have it all put together, you're just gonna go ahead and take your wrenches and tighten it up, and that's pretty much it. Now, again, the hole is supposed to be 3 feet deep. I'm gonna make mine a little deeper by using a form tube. Now that's a 12-inch form tube. They wanted that hole to be 3 feet deep, 16 inches in diameter. I'm gonna make mine 4 feet deep, 12 inches in diameter. That way I can use that form tube. And again, I'll show you in a minute what I mean, but what I have to do is I have to keep probably a good 6 to 8 inches of this tube sticking out of the ground to match the height of my driveway. And then when I'm backfill that dirt around it so that it's level. So again, I could build a form at the top of the dirt with wood like it tells you in the manual, but I'm gonna pretty much just try to use the form tube instead. So you can, I would always recommend doing it per the instructions, but this is what I am going to do. I want to dig the hole a little deeper, see if I can get that entire tube down in the ground, and then we'll see how that turns out. But again, let me go find that center point, start digging a hole, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we set up our measuring tape. I have a block here holding the very edge here, and I have it ran all the way over to here. Now we're looking at about 38 feet for my driveway. The area you're gonna install this might be a different size, so just go ahead and find your center point. But we're sitting at about 38 feet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find 19 feet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and mark my 19 feet, mark it, and then I'm gonna take a shovel, trim out this topsoil that I laid here, set that off to the side, and then I'm gonna start digging my hole. So okay, so I just started a hole. I have my marker marked as my center just to keep me a good idea. I'm gonna dig a nice round hole. I'm gonna have to go get my digging bar. My dirt is not that great around here, so I have a lot of rock, a lot of shale, a lot of stuff that's just not easy to dig through with a shovel. So I'm gonna have to go through and start digging that out with a digging bar. But once I get this hole dug deeper, we'll come right back with an update. Okay, so we're slowly getting there. We're about 1.5 feet deep. Now, again, I'm using a spade shovel here. Again, you're gonna wanna make sure you have one of those. I also had to use a digging bar because my dirt is very, very tight and hard and a lot of rock. So what a digging bar is, basically looks like this. It's a big metal, all steel with a little bit of a flat edge. And you could get these pretty much at any hardware store or a flea market or borrow one off of your friend, or heck, even some of your hardware stores might rent you one. But either way, these are really nice because again, they're very heavy, so you're definitely going to get an arm and shoulder workout. But all you're going to do is just keep digging down in there like this, and the weight of the actual digging bar does a lot of the digging. When you're trying to dig deep into a hole where a shovel is kind of awkward to use, go ahead and use a digging bar. That'll loosen up all the dirt. Then what you're going to want to get is a pole digger, which is not really much of a digger, but you could buy these cheap, something like this. You stick that down in the hole, you spread the handles, it basically picks the dirt out of a deep hole, because when you start getting deep enough, you might not have the leverage to get a shovel full of dirt out. So you want to go ahead and just use a post digger to pull that dirt out of the hole. So again, I'm separating the dirt down in here because there's a lot of rock and shale and garbage. I'm setting that in the wheelbarrow. I have my fresh screen topsoil over here. That way I can spread it back around. But as you can see, what I'm trying to tell you here is you see there's a little bit of a height difference between the driveway and the hole. So if I use that tube, I'm going to leave about 8 inches of the tube out, 6 to 8 inches, so that the top of the tube where the concrete plate is, it's going to be level with my driveway. So you'll see what I mean when I'm all done. But okay, we're getting there. We're about 2.5, 3 feet deep, but I had to take a little half-an-hour detour to dig out this. So yeah, not exactly fun trying to dig that out of a small hole, but we got around it and we got it loosened up, and I was able to reach in and kind of push a string around it and manually lift this thing out of the hole, which is not a small little rock by any means. It's a giant boulder that I dug out of there. So this is one thing I hate about digging, but that's part of Mother Nature. You never know what's underground until you dig. Now I'm just going to keep digging and get that hole deeper. So I had to make it a little bigger than I wanted to, because again, I needed some extra diameter of hole to pull this big stone out, but we'll go ahead and fill that in later. But for now, let's just keep digging. Okay, so we got the hole dug. Took me a little longer than I wanted it to take because I had to dig all of that out. So as you can see, we have a whole lot of boulders and rocks we had to dig out of that hole, but we got it done. Wasn't exactly easy, but we got the hole pretty deep, and we got our 4-foot tube down in the hole. As you can see now, the tube is more level with the actual flat part, not the curb stop, but I need it to be as flat as that. So now we're flat. Now what we got to do is start filling it up with concrete. And then once we have the concrete in, then we're going to start setting our rebar. So let me start mixing up some concrete. Okay, so I threw my first bag of concrete in the wheelbarrow, and now we're just going to take some water, wet it down. And again, there's no really science to this. Just basically keep mixing till it's a nice consistency. As you can see, it's still dry even after we mix some water in there, so we're going to add more water. You don't want it to be real runny like water, but you want it to be kind of thick. Like that, kind of soupy. That's kind of what you want. You can always go a little bit drier, but I don't mind a little extra water in mine. It makes it easier to deal with. All right, so that's it. So what I'm gonna do now is start pouring that in the tube over here. And then once I get up to a certain level, because again, that's a 4-foot tube, I'm probably gonna make sure I get the concrete up to at least a foot, and then we'll start putting our rebar in. So let me work on that and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. This is the second bag I'm putting in. So now I got the consistency a little bit more where I wanted it to be. Okay, as you can see here. You want it to be kind of a little thicker, but something you can work with. It does not have to be very runny like water, but you want it to be a little thick, but definitely something you can work with. But that's the consistency you're looking for. Okay, so we're back, and I have about almost 4 bags of concrete in this tube here. Now keep in mind, the instructions want you to go 3 feet deep, 16 inches wide. I ended up going 4 feet deep, 12 inches wide, because I wanted to use this tube. Now if you could find a tube that's 16 inches wide, they typically come in 4-foot length, you could just cut it, then go ahead and use that. So keep in mind, the instructions are going to tell you that you need 9 80-pound bags of concrete. But keep in mind, that's based on 3 foot deep at 16 inches wide. If you end up digging the hole too wide, or you dig it a little bit more narrower, you might need more or less concrete depending on how you do it. Now, I wanted to go with a tube like this because I know my dirt. When we built our house several years ago, we dug, we hit a lot of rock, a lot of boulders, slate, coal. We hit a lot of mess. So I knew what I was getting into anytime I'm digging a hole. So I wanted to make sure I went deeper, and I wanted to use a tube, that way I can get it down in there and keep it nice and stable in one particular long core. Because if you end up digging a hole very wide and misshaped, the concrete's going to go wherever it's going to fill in. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, because if it fills in on a weak spot, that could be a weak spot and not be as sturdy. I like doing this. So again, you could do this if you want, or you could follow the instructions, but this is what I did. I probably should have kept about a foot empty before I put the rebar in, but it's not going to matter either way. I just got to stick my hands down in the concrete. So what you want to do is take your 4 rebar pieces like this, and we're going to set them in here just like so, in like a square. So I'm going to stick them in just like this for now, so that you can see what I'm doing. And you kind of want them in a square position like this, just like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push them down with my finger below the surface, just like this, just to get some. There we go. That's it. So now that the rebar is in there, then when we fill this up to the top, we'll slide our bracket in, and then what happens is the rebar is going to hold the majority of the core of this concrete that's down below the ground stable, so that it doesn't want to move or crack or break apart. And then when you put the bracket on the top, it has those rods sticking out the bottom that are going to go down with a little bit of a hook. So what happens is when that actually dries, that hook that's at the very bottom is going to stop that thing from pulling out of the concrete. and then all that rebar is going to hold it all together. I just got to pour a little bit more concrete, and then we'll be back to put the bracket in, so hang tight. Okay, so now that we have that trowel down pretty flat, then we got to stick our bracket into the concrete. Now these hooks here are probably at least a foot long with a little 90-degree hook, and because you went with different directions, when it goes down there, those little hooks create a grip from underneath the concrete. Now on top, what I did is I took my level here and I zip tied it at the corners, so that way when I sit it into place I could tell if it's level, but the level will sit on the outer rim and stop the bracket from going underneath the concrete. So that's sort of what my goal was there. So what you want to do is just get it here, and you want it level with your driveway. So again, my driveway's over here. I want these brackets to be sort of level. Okay. Okay, just like that. All right, so that looks pretty good there. It's literally about a hair off, so I'm just gonna take a piece of concrete and wedge it under this side here. Now we're spot on, okay? And it looks to be pretty level with the driveway. Okay, so we're back and we have everything strapped on. Let's take a closer look at what it looks like. All right, so as I mentioned before, I used a zip tie to zip tie my big red level across the tube. And as you see here, the bubble right in the middle, okay? Now, I then made sure my two front bolts were pretty much almost level in terms of being straight on with the driveway. And then I put a smaller level in between the two bolts to make sure that is level. So as you can see, I'm level here from side to side or diagonally, and I'm level side to side. So that's what we're looking for. So now we're done. Now I believe the instructions say that you're going to use roughly 9 80-pound bags of concrete. Now in this tube, I only used 6 80-pound bags of concrete. What I will be doing is using another 2 to 3 or 4 bags on the outside of the tube, just to make sure that tube's not going to move, and then I'll backfill it with dirt. So at the end of the day, I'm still going to end up using 9 or 10 80-pound bags of concrete, so we should be good to go there. As you can see, actually zip tying this on there is going to basically stop this bracket from sinking in much more to the concrete, which I want to make sure it's kept above that. So we're good to go there. So all I gotta do is clean this out. All I gotta do is wipe it down a little bit, fill it back in with concrete around here, backfill it, and then we're gonna cover it with a tarp and let it sit for at least 4 or 5 days, and then we'll be back to set up the rest of the basketball hoops. Okay, so we are all done. We have everything backfilled. I reseeded and regraded everything. I actually put some foam blocks underneath the actual level to make sure it doesn't sink at all. And everything seems to be pretty level, front to back and side to side. So we're gonna let this dry as much as we can because it's a nice sunny day, but I think rain's coming tomorrow, so probably later tonight I'll cover it with a plastic bin or a tarp of some sort, and we'll protect it. But we'll give us about 5 days and then we'll start working on the basketball hoop. But so far, so good. Now let me just take a quick moment and explain why I bought this in-ground basketball hoop instead of a typical portable one. Because I want to make sure I'm setting the right expectation for all of you. I live in a very windy area, and if you've seen any of my previous videos, you could probably hear it in the audio at times. I get a lot of wind. So I was worried about getting a portable basketball hoop, and I was actually worried about having it blown over and damaged, so I didn't want that. So I wanted an in-ground basketball hoop that I knew was going to be more stable. That's point number one. Now, I also believe it's important to make sure that you go into this with the right expectations. If you read the reviews, it has a lot of great reviews, okay? But there are also a lot of other people that complain in the reviews that it still shakes a little bit. Now, again, I don't necessarily think this is install error, okay? I believe in just general gravity, okay? If you have something that's really tall and top heavy, it could rock a little bit. Case in point, my lifted truck over here. If I go around a corner and I hit a little bump, I'm gonna be rocking and rolling. Buildings rock, bridges rock, flag poles that are very tall with a flag, they can rock a little bit. So I'm not going into this expecting that this basketball hoop is gonna be so solid that it will not move or rock at all. I don't have that expectation. I do expect it to wiggle a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going into this with that expectation, and I think you should too. I don't think it's gonna be as bad as a lot of people say. The actual instructions tell you to make the hole 16 inches in diameter, 3 feet deep. That's it, okay? And they call for about 8 to 9 80-pound bags of concrete. So I went 4 feet deep at 12 inches round. I filled the tube with concrete, put my rebar in it, and I actually put concrete around the outside of the tube because I had a little bit of an over dig. So I think my base is gonna be solid already. I do expect a little bit of wiggling, but not a big deal to me. So I just wanted to explain that to you guys, that don't get a basketball hoop thinking it's not gonna wiggle at all, because it probably will. So just go into that and you'll be perfectly fine. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is start taking everything out of the box. I already have this box open because that was part of the kit that got cemented into the ground. Here is my hardware kit. This kit right here is actually for your adjuster on the back to raise it up and down. And then we just gotta get all of this taken out of the box, sorted, and then we're gonna look at the instructions and figure out how to start putting it together. Okay, so we got everything taken out. I left the backboard in there for now because I'll probably use that last. And I have everything else taken apart. So let me take a closer look now at the instructions and we'll be right back on where we're gonna start. Okay, so we're gonna start putting the brackets together. I'm actually just gonna try to use these horses here just so it's a little easier to work with. So we're just gonna go ahead and slide together. Everything's pretty much labeled here, which is what I really like. Everything has numbers, it's labeled, so you really can't mess this part up. I honestly think the hardest part of this whole install is gonna be digging that hole and doing the concrete pillar. Once that's done, this stuff here is really, really well written and very easy to follow. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start following through page by page, get this thing put together, but I will take breaks every so often and show you where we are so far. Okay, so the first couple pages, basically, you're gonna take your bottom bracket, your top bracket, put it together. You're gonna use these bolts. There's gonna be 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts holding it all together. And then you're gonna put this main bolt here through the top with a washer on the bottom, and then a nut at the bottom. So that's basically the first like 3 or 4 pages so far. So far, this seems to be a very simple process. Okay, so next you're gonna take these 2 brackets here and you're gonna lay them like this, to where the tall bracket goes towards the middle. Now, if you look here on the inside, you follow your holes. There's 1, there's 2, the next set down, which is right here, which is just above your middle point. You're gonna mount them right there like that. You're gonna take your other bracket, like that, and you're gonna use the 4 longer bolts. I believe these are the 24s, and then you need some washers, which are labeled 36. So you're gonna do a bolt, a washer. Out the other side, you're gonna do a washer and a nut, tighten them on, you're good. Okay, so the next step is to take your main bracket here, and you're gonna slide it on like this. So again, this is the back, because it's labeled back, where your main bolt is. Follow it up. You want that facing forward, and you want the label facing just like that. There are 2 holes here on the side. There's one up here, one up high, one down low in the middle. You want to take your main bolt, slide it from this side with a metal washer. On this side, you want to slide in one of those large nylon washers, a large nylon washer over here. Then out the other side, you're going to do a metal washer and then your nut. The nylon washers are going to be these thinner ones like this. Okay, so you want to make sure you do that. They're a little bit hard to slide down in there, so what I did was I just kind of held it on the side with a screwdriver and then slid the screwdriver down until it was in place to where I could just shove the bolt through, but I got it through. So again, very simple. It's not hard. You can see the nylon washer right down in there. If I can catch it with the right light, see it right there? So it's not easy to get that in there. It just takes a little bit of patience, or you can maybe take a piece of tape and like a long piece of tape, attach that nylon washer to it, you do something like that. But once you got that on, we're gonna go to the next step. But that's essentially what it's gonna look like thus far. Okay, so we're actually already on page 17 of the instructions. These are very, very simple, easy instructions. Trust me, anybody could do it. If you just follow these, you cannot mess this up. So we're on page 17 already. And what we're gonna do is take the actuator and put the tubes in the top, just like it shows. What you're gonna do is find that actuator probably right here in your skinny box. This right here is basically what you're gonna be turning when you wanna raise it up or lower it down. Okay, on this step, very, very simple. It's just taking the actuator and then taking their tube, which is this metal bushing, and sliding it through. Now you wanna make sure it's compressed because you want this, let me see, I'll pull it back out. You want this tube right here to go through the cap, the plastic housing, and the metal main tube, which is inside here. So make sure you line it all up like that and just slide your tube all the way in. That's basically what step 17 is. So again, these instructions are very, very simple. Okay, so the next thing you wanna do is take your actuator and you're just gonna use the supplied bolt and washers to mount it to those brackets we did earlier. So once you get that nice and tight, you just wanna make sure your actuator is still able to move, but you wanna tighten your bolts here and here. You're gonna take your handle and it's just going to go ahead and slide on with a cotter pin style pin, and you're done with this step. So that's step 18. So let's move on to the next. So when it comes time to do your top bolt through your bracket here that goes through the actuator, this right here is gonna be pretty much stuck still. So what you're gonna wanna do is crank your handle until this lines up with those holes. Once it does, throw your pin in and then you'll be good to go. Just make sure that when you put your top bolt in, that you don't forget those nylon bushings right here on the outside. So again, you wanna do your bolt, a metal washer, the nylon washer. The bolt goes through that sleeve we put through earlier. You'll have another nylon washer here, metal washer, and then your last bolt. Okay, so the next step, which is actually step 21, is just basically putting in your stop spacers. So you're gonna put a bolt through a stop spacer on this side, through the main pull, a stop spacer, and then your nut. Tighten it down, and that's what you're gonna do. And the purpose of that is when you're adjusting your backboard up and down, it's a stopping point to stop you from going any further. Okay, so the next step is going to be page 22. And on page 22, we're just attaching the long legs to the outside. We're using that last long number 21 bolt and the number 36 washer, and then those last two thick nylon rings. So basically they're gonna look like that. It's a thicker nylon spacer. So you're gonna put your legs just like that. So where they're gonna come straight down, they're gonna go out and then straight down. You're gonna put your bolt with a washer, then a spacer, then another spacer, washer, put the nut on the end, tighten it down nice and snug. That's gonna be step 22, and then we'll be on to the next step. Okay, so now we're gonna throw our arm brace on, which looks just like this. It's gonna go in between your main arms here that we just did on the floor, and you have the tall side here facing up. Okay, it's gonna go right there in between with the holes on both sides. Then you're gonna be using the number 26 bolts. There was 4 of them. Then you're gonna be using the number 37 washers. There's 8 of them. You're gonna be using all 8 of those. As it shows you right here, you're gonna be doing a bolt, a washer, a nut. Okay, so that's basically what you want it to look like. Again, we're gonna have a bolt, a washer, goes through the bracket, put another washer and a nut. Do that on all 4, tighten them down and you're done. Okay, so bear with me. In these next steps of the instructions, before you attach the backboard, it actually wants you to mount your pole to that concrete brace in the ground first. Then it wants you to do your backboard while it's up in the air. Now, they typically recommend 4 to 5 adults helping you do this because of how heavy this backboard is, because you're lifting it up in the air. Now, I probably could have did this a couple of different ways. I could have mounted this and then tried to mount that up in the air, maybe off the bed of my truck. But I'm gonna try it this way. So what I did was I flipped the backboard upside down, kept it in a box with some foam padding underneath. Then what I did was I used the pivot arm here and was able to lift this up and down to get all my brackets mounted in like you normally would in the following steps. So my thought process is, now that this is all one complete unit, I will then back my truck up in here. I will lift this up into the bed of the truck with padding and blankets to protect the glass, slide it into the bed so that basically this right here is hanging off the back of the bed. Then my thought is, if I can back the truck up close to where, let's say that right here is the back of my driveway where the concrete block is, then I could just kind of shimmy this off the back of the truck and get it down onto the brace. Then while I'm in the bed of the truck, I can lift this up into place, and then all I gotta do is bolt it at the bottom, and then everything should already be done. And then I just have to mount my hoop onto the front, put my net on, put my little protective barriers around the outer edge of the backboard, and put the foam padding on the pole, and then we should be done. So again, I'm not sure how easy this is gonna go. So this is what I'm thinking is gonna work for me, because I'm not gonna have 4 to 5 adults helping me do this. It's just gonna be basically me and my wife. So I'm gonna try it this way to see if this works. If you wanna do it the other way in the instructions, where you basically mount the pole first and then you somehow have to lift this up on a ladder or on the bed of a truck or whatever you gotta do and mount this piece of glass up in the air, that's fine. Try it that way. But I did not feel confident holding this big, heavy sheet of tempered glass up in the air while somebody's behind there trying to mount it. So I figured if I mount it first, I could probably use a little bit of leverage to leverage it into place. So we're gonna work on that in a couple of days once that concrete hardens. But this is my idea for now. But so far, everything looks really good. The instructions were very, very simple. It's just at this point here, when you get to the backboard, if you don't have enough people helping you, you might want to try it this way. But again, we'll find out if it works in a couple of days. But so far, so good. Everything was simple and easy. Just want to go ahead, after you get this mounted on, get yourself a small little level, keep it on there, and then just start tightening it up. Okay, so as you can see, this can be done with 1 or 2 people. So all I have to do now is use a socket wrench, get those last couple bolts tightened down. We'll throw the back cap on, we'll put the net on, we'll finish tightening the bottom real good. It should be good to go. So let me go finish this up. So you're just gonna take your bottom plate here after everything's nice and snug, and you're just gonna go ahead and sit it in place, and it's gonna screw in very easy with 4 small supplied screws. Now what I'm doing is I'm just taking these rubber pads, they stick on to the side. There's 3 self-tapping screws. You could drill right in to the outside of the frame, and then we'll be done up top. Okay, so we're pretty much done. So after I bolted down the bolts, I bolted the rim to the backboard. I bolted the plate in right here that covers the bolts. Now we're just placing our height sticker. So what you want to do is raise it up pretty high and then use a measuring tape from the rim to the ground to measure 10 foot, which I have it set at 10 foot. Then what you want to do is put a piece of tape right at the bottom of the plastic sleeve, marking where 10 foot is. Then what we're going to do is lower it, which is going to make this sleeve slide up higher. And we're going to stick our measurement on the side right here so that we know where 10 foot is. Okay, so what I did was I lowered the backboard all the way down, and by doing so, it moves the sleeve up. And all I did was I marked this triangle point right here, right with where my green tape was. And I started from the top, and I peeled back half the backing, and I stuck the top first. And then once I got down about halfway, I peeled the green tape off, and then I stuck the rest of it down. So now we have a full measure of where we go. So as I start raising it back up, the sleeve will slide over. So if I, for example, if I take the sleeve down to right here, now I know that I'm right at 8 foot. Okay, everybody, we are finally done. This is day 4. I actually did it a day early because tomorrow's Memorial Day. So I actually mounted it on day 4 so that when everybody comes over my house tomorrow for Memorial Day, they could shoot some hoops. Let's take a look. There we go. So that's what it looks like. Again, I have 38 feet wide. I have a very big driveway pad here when I move the trucks out of the way. So now we have a pretty big basketball court here. So when we have friends over, holidays, friends, family, whatever not, we actually have a pretty cool basketball hoop to start playing some ball. Works for me. Okay, so my first impressions, I really like it. It's very sturdy. It doesn't shake as bad as what I thought it was going to based off the reviews. So it's actually pretty sturdy in my opinion. I was dropping some 3-point bombs, just pretty much shooting right at the backboard, trying to get it to shake a lot. It wiggled a little bit, but not bad at all. I'm very happy with it. I think the overall quality is very, very good. I think the installation was very easy. The only hard part I'd say was really digging the hole and putting the concrete pillar in the ground. Other than that, getting it set up using the leverage off the back of the truck, I thought worked out very, very easy. So I can't complain. So I'm very happy with this purchase. I think it's a great product. I think the kids are gonna have a lot of fun. And I think overall as a family, we're gonna have a lot of fun with this. So that's it for today's video. Hit that thumbs up button, like this video for me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And also subscribe to the channel because it definitely helps me out and I greatly appreciate it. So that's it for today's video. I just wanted to say I appreciate you all. Thank you. See you in the next video.